Welcome back to Project Debrief. Today we're going deep on MKUltra.
Oh, yeah.
One of those topics shrouded in mystery and controversy. This is a top-secret CIA program.
Definitely top secret. So much so that in 1973, the CIA director Richard Helms actually ordered the destruction of all the MKUltra files.
Wow.
Who
So
are we working with here?
it's kind of like we only have a few pieces of a very complex puzzle.
Right, and the stakes of this puzzle are really high. We're talking mind control,
Oh, yeah.
chemical interrogation. I mean, these are experiments that sound like they're straight out of a sci-fi thriller.
Definitely unsettling stuff, especially when you think about it. This was going on for like 20 years, from the early 50s to at least the late 60s. And what we do know paints a really disturbing picture of a program that really just disregarded any ethical boundaries.
Right, right. I mean, that's why we're here today, to untangle all of this.
Yeah. What were they trying to accomplish? What kind of experiments were they doing? How did anyone even find out about this? And what happened to the people involved?
All great questions, and the answers, I think you'll see, are very complex and honestly disturbing.
Well, let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
Where did this whole MKUltra idea come from? I mean, it sounds so crazy, like something a Bond villain would dream up.
Right. It may sound far-fetched, but the roots of MKUltra are really grounded in the Cold War. The CIA was very worried about the Soviets, the Chinese, and the North Koreans. They felt like they were being left behind in this mind control arms race.
So they were worried about being on the losing end of some mind control battle.
Yeah, exactly. They felt they needed to figure out how to defend against enemy mind control, but also how to use it themselves. How to manipulate foreign leaders, create sleeper agents, or even use it to get information out of people.
Wow, so that's where MKUltra comes in.
Yeah, in 1953, under the direction of this chemist named Sidney Gottlieb,
Oh, yeah?
the CIA launched MKUltra. But it wasn't just one project, it was this huge program
Wow.
with over 150 sub-projects.
Wow, over 150. What were some of the main things they were looking into?
All sorts of things. Drugs, hypnosis, electroshock therapy, sensory deprivation. You name it, they were probably researching it.
Right.
But I guess the most well-known and controversial part of MKUltra was their research into LSD.
LSD, you mean like the psychedelic drug?
Yep, that's the one.
Wow.
In the beginning, they were really interested in how LSD could alter perception and behavior. They thought maybe they could use it as a truth serum or as a way to manipulate foreign leaders, maybe even weaponize it and use it to incapacitate their enemies.
So did they give LSD to people without telling them?
Well, that is one of the most disturbing parts of all of this. A lot of the experiments are done on people who had no idea what was going on, like CIA employees and military personnel, even patients in mental hospitals,
Wow.
and just regular unsuspecting people.
That's really messed up.
Yeah.
I mean, LSD is a powerful drug. Who knows what kind of long-term effects those experiments had?
No kidding. LSD can cause some really intense hallucinations and paranoia and emotional instability. To do that to people without their consent is just a complete violation of human rights.
It's really hard to believe that this was happening in the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, a country that's supposed to value individual liberty and, consent.
Were there any specific examples of these LSD experiments that were, like, really bad?
Oh, yeah. One that really stands out is called Operation Midnight Climax.
Operation Midnight Climax?
Yeah.
What was that?
Basically, they set up these safe houses disguised as brothels.
What?
Yeah, in San Francisco and New York City. And they would lure men there and secretly give them LSD. They even had one-way mirrors to watch what would happen.
Wow, it just keeps getting worse and worse. So what were they trying to do with Operation Midnight Climax? Like, what was the point?
Well, they said they wanted to see if LSD could make people divulge secrets or make them more susceptible to suggestion.
Okay.
But it was really unethical and exploitative. Yeah, it's hard to believe they were doing this with taxpayer money. So what else were they doing with LSD?
They tried different doses, different ways of giving it to people, and even mixing it with other drugs.
Wow.
Some experiments involved giving people LSD, like, every day for weeks.
I can't imagine what that must have been like.
Yeah.
I mean, were they even concerned about the well-being of these people at all?
I mean, in many cases, no. They didn't really care. And some people suffered serious psychological breakdowns and long-term mental health issues because of these experiments.
That's so awful.
Yeah.
So did they even figure out if LSD could be used for mind control?
The results were mixed, and the CIA ultimately concluded that it was too unpredictable. Sometimes people would become more suggestible, but then other times they'd experience paranoia and anxiety, or even believe they were immune to interrogation.
So it sounds like LSD was a dead end for them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But the CIA's fascination with mind control didn't stop there. They moved on to other substances like heroin and morphine, barbiturates, amphetamines. They even tried injecting people with combinations of drugs.
That sounds so risky.
It was super risky.
And unethical.
Totally unethical. And again, the results were pretty unpredictable and dangerous. Some people got really agitated, others completely withdrew, and some had lasting psychological damage.
It sounds like they were just throwing things at the wall and seeing what stuck. Was there any method to their madness?
I mean, there was some attempt at being scientific about it, but it was also very rushed and secretive, and that sometimes overshadowed, ethical concerns. The pressure to stay ahead of the Soviets was huge, and that led to some really bad decisions.
It's amazing how the Cold War really fueled this drive to explore every single avenue, no matter how questionable it was.
Yeah, that's really the takeaway here. The fear of the Soviets combined with this, allure of unlocking the secrets of the mind, it created a perfect storm for this to happen.
So we've talked about LSD and other drugs, but what about hypnosis?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was another area that MKUltra was interested in, right?
Yeah, totally. The CIA saw hypnosis as a potential way to manipulate behavior, enhance memory, even create sleeper agents.
Wow.
They funded all sorts of research into different hypnotic techniques, looking for ways to induce amnesia.
Wow.
Implant false memories, or even program people to do things without knowing it.
So they were trying to create real-life hypno-soldiers.
Pretty much. The CIA's interest in hypnosis is all over the surviving MKUltra files. They funded projects at universities, hospitals, even private institutions, all aimed at figuring out if hypnosis could be used for mind control.
And what did they find out? Could they actually use hypnosis for that?
Well, the results were kind of all over the place. It seems hypnosis can influence behavior and perception to some degree, but it's not like a magic bullet, you know what I mean?
Right, so they couldn't just snap their fingers and turn someone into a programmable assassin.
No, not quite. Human consciousness is way too complex for that. While hypnosis can be a powerful tool, it can't just override someone's free will.
That's at least a little reassuring, but it's still crazy to think about the CIA putting so much effort into it.
Right. It really shows just how worried they were during the Cold War and the lengths they were willing to go to, gain an advantage, even if it meant crossing ethical lines.
So we've got drugs, we've got hypnosis. What else did they look into in their search for mind control? Were there any, weird or unexpected areas they researched?
Well, this one might surprise you. They actually got into the world of magic and illusion.
Magic and illusion?
Yeah, they hired John Mulholland. He was a famous magician at the time.
Okay.
To write these manuals on sleight of hand deception and how to communicate undercover.
So they hired a magician to train spies. That's awesome.
Yeah, it seems like they wanted to use Mulholland's knowledge to help their agents be more effective in the field.
Okay.
So they could conceal objects, manipulate perceptions, and communicate secretly.
That's so cool. Like something out of a spy movie. And did it work? Were Mulholland's techniques actually helpful?
Hard to say for sure. A lot of this stuff is still classified. But it shows just how far they were willing to go in their pursuit of mind control and operational effectiveness.
So MKUltra was this massive program that reached into all these different areas, right? So far, we've mostly talked about the experiments in the U.S., but didn't some of this happen in Canada, too?
Yeah, you're right. The CIA's influence extended beyond the U.S. Some of the most messed up MKUltra experiments actually took place up in Montreal, Canada, at the Allen Memorial Institute.
Oh, wow. What was going on there?
That's where we meet this guy, Dr. Donald Ewan Cameron, a Scottish psychiatrist who came up with this idea called psychic driving.
Psychic driving, what is that?
Cameron thought he could completely erase a person's memories and personality and then reprogram them with new thoughts and behaviors. His methods were pretty extreme.
Okay, I'm getting nervous now. What kind of methods are we talking about here?
He used a combo of drug-induced comas, intensive electroshock therapy, and then he would play these audio recordings over and over again. He'd put people in comas that could last for weeks or even months.
Wow.
And just blast them with this audio.
What kind of patients did he do this to?
That's one of the worst parts. Many of them didn't even have serious mental illnesses. They were there for things like anxiety or postpartum depression, They had no clue they were going to be part of these crazy and potentially dangerous experiments.
It's hard to believe a doctor would do that to his patients. Did Dr. Cameron know he was working for the CIA?
Yeah, he was getting funding from them through MKUltra. They were interested in psychic driving as a potential method for breaking down and rebuilding a person's personality.
So the CIA was basically outsourcing its unethical research.
You could say that. Yeah, it shows just how far MKUltra reached and how secretive it was.
What happened to Cameron's patients?
Many of them suffered permanent damage like memory loss, confusion, incontinence, and even the loss of basic motor skills. Imagine forgetting who you are, your family, how to walk or talk.
It's horrifying.
It was devastating for them.
Did anything happen to Dr. Cameron?
Eventually, the truth came out, and there were lawsuits, settlements, even a formal apology from the Canadian government.
Wow.
But the damage was already done.
It's good that there was at least some accountability, but it's a tragic reminder of the cost of these experiments.
For sure. The stories of Cameron's patients are a reminder that we need ethical oversight in scientific research, especially when vulnerable people are involved.
We've covered so much already in this first part of our deep dive into MKUltra. We've seen how the Cold War anxieties led to this whole thing, how they did all these crazy experiments and the horrible effects they had on innocent people.
Yeah, and we've only just scratched the surface. In this part, we're going to talk about how this whole thing came to light and what happened after it was exposed.
It's hard to imagine that something this secretive could stay hidden forever.
Yeah.
So how did the truth about MKUltra come out? Was it like a whistleblower or a big news story?
Well, it wasn't really just one thing. Remember in 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms tried to destroy all the MKUltra files. He was trying to bury the whole thing.
But like we said before, some of those documents survived.
Right, and those documents, plus all the distrust in the government because of Watergate, really set the stage for MKUltra to be revealed.
So Watergate actually played a role in this.
Oh yeah, for sure. Watergate made people a lot more skeptical of the government. They were more likely to believe that these institutions were doing bad things behind closed doors.
Right, it's like Watergate opened the floodgates and then the MKUltra secrets started spilling out.
Exactly. And then in 1974, the New York Times published a series of reports revealing that the CIA was doing illegal things here in the U.S., including experimenting on American citizens.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's when things really blew up.
So that's when people really started paying attention?
Yeah, the public was furious, and Congress had to do something about it. Senator Frank Church led a committee to investigate the CIA's actions, and that became known as the Church Committee.
The Church Committee. I've heard that name before in relation to, like, intelligence agencies going too far.
Yeah, the Church Committee, along with another investigation by the Rockefeller Commission, really brought MKUltra out into the open.
So what did these investigations uncover? Did they prove that the program was as big and as unethical as people suspected?
Oh yeah, their findings were really shocking. They confirmed that the CIA was doing mind control experiments on people without their consent, and often with terrible consequences.
Did anything happen to the CIA? I mean, they committed some serious human rights violations.
There was a lot of fallout. Public outrage, stricter rules on human research, and a big push for more transparency and accountability from these agencies.
It sounds like that was a major turning point in how people viewed the power and accountability of intelligence agencies.
It definitely was. MKUltra started a national conversation about national security and individual rights, and that conversation is still going on today.
And it makes you wonder how much we still don't know about MKUltra.
Right. That's the unsettling part. We may never have the full picture because the CIA tried to destroy the files and everything was so classified.
It's like trying to put together a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But even with what we do know, the stories of the MKUltra victims are super important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Their experiences show us just how damaging these experiments were and why accountability is so important.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the legal battles that the victims went through. It must have been really tough to try and get justice from such a powerful organization like the CIA.
Oh yeah, taking on the government is no easy task. But many of the MKUltra victims were really brave, and they came forward to share their stories and fight for recognition and compensation.
What were some of the challenges they faced in court?
Well, the government used a lot of legal tactics to try and block them. One of the biggest ones was the state secrets privilege.
What's that? Yeah, it sounds like a way for the government to keep things hidden, even if they did something wrong.
It basically is.
Yeah.
That's how it works. The government can say that certain information can't be revealed because it would harm national security.
So they could just say, we can't talk about that, it's a secret, and that's it. Case closed.
It wasn't always that easy, but it was a really powerful tool that was often used to silence the victims and prevent them from having their cases heard in court.
That's messed up, that a rule meant to protect national security could be used to cover up wrongdoing. Were any of the lawsuits successful?
Some were, but it took a long time and a lot of fighting. You remember the story about Frank Olson, the Army scientist who jumped out a window after the CIA gave him LSD?
Yeah, that was so sad.
Well, his family fought for decades to find out what really happened to him. They eventually got a settlement from the government and an apology from President Ford, who admitted that the CIA played a role in his death.
That's good that they at least got some justice, but it doesn't bring him back.
Yeah.
Were there any other big legal cases related to MKUltra?
There was one that went all the way to the Supreme Court. It was United States v. Stanley back in 1987.
Okay, what happened there?
James Stanley was an Army sergeant who was secretly given LSD as part of an MKUltra experiment. He was never told what they were doing, and he suffered severe psychological trauma because of it, so he sued the government.
It's crazy to think that someone who was serving their country was being experimented on without their knowledge.
Right. It raises a lot of ethical questions about consent and the limits of government power.
So what happened in the Supreme Court? Did they rule in his favor?
Unfortunately, no. They ruled against him. They upheld what's called the Ferris Doctrine, which basically says that military personnel can't sue the government for injuries that happened while they were serving.
So because he was in the military, he couldn't sue them. That doesn't seem right.
A lot of legal experts think that this doctrine lets the government get away with harming its own service members.
Yeah, it seems like a huge betrayal of trust.
The judges who disagreed with the ruling in the Stanley case said that military discipline shouldn't protect the government from being held responsible for human rights violations.
So even though Stanley lost his case, it sounds like it started a larger conversation about informed consent and government accountability.
Exactly. The Stanley case and other lawsuits related to MKUltra brought these issues to the forefront and led to more calls for reform and better protection for people involved in research.
It's a reminder that these legal battles weren't just about individual cases. They were about exposing the truth and making sure these things never happen again.
Absolutely. And the courage of these victims led to more transparency and accountability in government research. Their fight continues to shape how we think about consent ethical limits and the power of the government.
MKUltra has had a huge impact beyond just the people who were directly involved. It's affected our legal system, our understanding of ethics, and even our popular culture.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's affected our legal system, our understanding of ethics, and even our popular culture. In this final part, we're going to explore how MKUltra has seeped into our collective imagination and continues to shape our culture even today.
It's wild, right? MKUltra officially ended back in the 70s, but it's still with us. It's inspired everything from books and movies to conspiracy theories and video games.
It feels like MKUltra tapped into some primal fear.
Right.
Like this idea that our minds can be controlled, manipulated, even reprogrammed without us even knowing. It's terrifying, but also kind of fascinating.
Totally. I mean, mind control is a powerful concept. It gets at the core of who we are, our sense of self and free will. And MKUltra, with all its real-life experiments and secrecy, it just makes for great storytelling.
It blurs the lines between fact and fiction.
Exactly.
I'm thinking of films like The Manchurian Candidate.
Yes.
Both the original and the remake.
Yeah.
They really capture that Cold War paranoia and the idea that anyone could be a brainwashed assassin.
The Manchurian Candidate is a perfect example. It's like the go-to story for exploring mind control and political manipulation.
Yeah.
Then you have movies like Inception, which mess with the idea of planting ideas in someone's subconscious and make you question what's real and what's not.
Even shows like The X-Files have touched on the whole MKUltra thing. I remember that one episode.
Well, yeah.
Where they find this secret government program using alien tech for mind control. It's amazing how this one real-life program keeps popping up in so many different stories.
It's a testament to how powerful and inspirational MKUltra is for storytellers. You've got conspiracy, betrayal, the dark side of government, the fragility of the human mind. It's all there.
It's got it all. And it's not just fiction either. MKUltra is like this breeding ground for conspiracy theories.
Oh, for sure. All that missing information, the CIA's history of secrecy, the crazy experiments, it just fuels speculation.
It's like MKUltra has become a mirror, reflecting all our anxieties about the world. Some people see it as proof of this massive government conspiracy to control our thoughts, while others see it as a warning about the dangers of unchecked power.
You got it. It's become a symbol of our fear of manipulation and control. And since we don't know everything that happened, it's easy to fill in the blanks with our own interpretations.
It's incredible how something that happened so long ago can still have such a hold on us.
I know, right?
Why do you think that is? Why are we still so fascinated by MKUltra?
Because I think deep down MKUltra makes us ask these big questions about who we are, what consciousness is, and whether we're really in control. It makes us face this disturbing possibility that our thoughts, our beliefs, even our actions could be manipulated by outside forces.
It's the ultimate violation of privacy.
Yeah, totally. And it's that possibility that makes MKUltra so compelling and so disturbing and so present in our culture. It reminds us that the fight for our minds, for our freedom, it's never really over.
Well, this brings us to the end of our deep dive into MKUltra. It's been a journey through some pretty dark stuff, exploring how the government tried to control the human mind and the devastating effects it had.
We've seen how the Cold War led to this obsession with mind control, how ethical lines were crossed, and how the victims bravely fought for justice.
And we've seen how MKUltra has become this cultural phenomenon that continues to inspire and disturb us.
It's a powerful reminder of why we need transparency and accountability in research, especially when it comes to human subjects.
It also reminds us that we need to protect our minds and our freedom. We have to be vigilant, challenge authority, and question the stories that tried to control us.
Keep asking questions.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into MKUltra. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay vigilant.